Okay, all guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba. European roots with that Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. You know that's how we're going to enjoy it. We got the Heat tonight, Jason Terry. Got the Panthers at the same time. I'm going to be sitting on the couch in the Zaslow Mansion family room. I'm going to have an ice cold Johnny in my hand. Pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba, your local Sedanos, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. Always drink responsibly. And, of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Okay, I'm very excited to talk to Jason Barrett. Jason Barrett, Barrett Sports Media, which is, I mean, for the media dorks like myself, is the premier sports media website. It's where we get all of our information. The guys like me, we always want to be featured in there. He has done a terrific job building up this media website. He former program director, several stations across the country, several big stations. And I wanted to get Jason on the show here. Number one, Jason's a good dude. He loves pro wrestling. So obviously he's a good dude. But we wanted to get Jason on because I love talking about sports media. I love this kind of stuff. And Jason, who better to have a little conversation about it with than Jason Barrett. So Jason, thanks so much for joining us here. And I do want to mention, you have the Barrett Sports Media Summit coming up in a couple of months in New York City this year. What year number is this?
This will be year number 6.
Wow. So year number 6. And for folks, I get messages all the time, like on social media, Zaslow, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to start this. Do you have any advice? My advice would be go to Barrett Sports Media and check out the details about the summit that's coming up in a couple of months, because I'll let you tell a little bit about it here, Jason. This is the place you want to be if you want to meet all the people. Everybody converges from all over the industry.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I appreciate you bringing it up. The way I've always built it is it's a 2-day masterclass on the sports media business. You know, you got decision makers in the room from radio, television, digital advertising, the agent world. Look, there's things on stage that people are going to learn just from hearing people talk about experience and what they go through. On the other hand, let's face it, we all like to network and meet people. And if you're like, the only thing we try to do is we keep it close to the public. You have to be in the business or you have to be in school pursuing the business. So if you're going to communication school, we have a special student rate we put in there. And a lot, like we've got one kid coming from Arizona for the 3rd straight year, because he sees the value in, hey, if I get in that room and I shake hands with the right people, when I'm ready to graduate, I'll have made some inroads. And eventually, if I'm good enough, they'll give me a shot. And so it really does bring together some of the best on-air talent in the business, the best decision makers from companies all over the place. I mean, you mentioned me being into wrestling. We've had WWE, Amazon, all the radio groups, ESPN, Fox, all the TV groups. And so you just try to get a lot of smart people in one space for 2 days, dissect as much different business that's out there to examine of how we make the industry better. And hopefully those are in the room, take some knowledge away from it and shake a few hands and make a few contacts.
And BarrettSportsMedia.com, folks can go check out tickets, all kinds of availability, all that stuff coming up.
Yep. Yeah, they go right onto the store. They'll see the tickets. We also have a conference site where we'll put our speakers, bsmsummit.com, all of those things. And if you follow us on social, you're going to see something hit you in the face at some point about it, because it's one of the biggest things we do.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm planning on coming. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to meeting a bunch of people who I've never been able to meet in person, be it talk on the phone or even like this on Zoom. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be really great. I got the time to do it now. I make my own schedule. I'm my own boss. All right.
Yeah,
well. So Jason, let's start out here. I got a few sports media topics, and the timing is good because yesterday was a very big news day. Obviously, Kyle Lowry getting traded. That's amazing news. But on top of that, you had WWE announce a new partnership with Netflix starting in 2025, Monday Night Raw, which I don't know, at least for now, it's still going to be on Mondays, but Monday Night Raw is going to be streaming exclusively every single week on Netflix. It is a 10-year, $5 billion deal. What does this mean for, folks who watch pro wrestling? And what does it potentially mean then also for sports?
I think first we'll start with the wrestling side. Wrestling fans will flock to wherever the programming is. WWE has built that trust with its audience for decades. We're not going to not watch Raw. Now, are there going to be some people like the football crowd that complained about Peacock showing the playoff game that'll say, wait, I watched it as part of my cable subscription and now I have to sign up for Netflix and pay extra money if they didn't? Sure, there's always going to be some of that. But that's the world we're in. That world's been in existence since, 2013, 15, when the world started going this direction. So I think we're just going to see more of this, not less. The question ultimately becomes which of these groups are going to become heavy players in the sports space. And when Netflix goes and makes an investment of $500 million a year in a product like this, that's telling you that they see a lot of value in live programming. That's something that they've been reluctant to explore in the past. On the other hand, this is 52 weeks of programming a year. Don't forget there are premium live events that WWE does internationally, because this deal also includes the UK, also includes Latin America, also includes Canada for Netflix. Well, those are 4 countries right there that they're going to make some money on off of this deal. What's interesting, when this was first, and if you've just followed some of the business talk around the WWE deal, when it came out that the WWE and Fox were going to split, and Fox was not going to renew at $500 million a year, I remember the initial reaction was like, "Oh man, they're going to have a hard time getting that deal." Anyone who asked me, I told them they're going to have that deal, no problem. Like, first of all, if you know anything about Nick Khan is great at what he does. So if you watched his interview yesterday with Pat McAfee on ESPN, he followed something that's been in the trades for a while, where he left open the door of Monday Night Raw becoming a different night Raw, right? And they did that because he made the point. We're up against the college football championship game. We're up against the NCAA tournament game. We're up against Monday Night Football. And even then, WWE still crushes on Monday night. You move it to Tuesday, they have less competition. Yeah, the traditionalists like myself who've been watching Monday nights forever will go, "Oh, this isn't great. I wish it was on Monday." And you know what I'll do? I'll be there on Tuesday bitching and moaning. I'll still be watching the show. And so the bottom line is WWE is one of the most dominant businesses, period, in sports. The Netflix saw greater value, I think, in them than they would in probably some of the top 4. Everybody wants the NFL. Those kind of groups eventually will have the kind of interest, with the NFL to command their interest of coming over. I think you're just going to see more of Apple, Google, Amazon, Netflix playing in the sports space. I've been saying this since 2015 that this day was coming. All you have to do is follow the money. This is where the money is. At some point, when you see ESPN talking about looking for a financial strategic partner, well, yeah, they need the leagues to be financial strategic partners because it'll help offset rights deals. If not, who's going to win at the negotiating table when rights deals come up? ESPN owned by Disney, or Apple, who owns the entire world's economy? Like, at some point, Apple, Meta, Google, they're all super loaded. They control the majority of dollars that are spent on advertising and everything we do. So as long as those groups want to play in this space, they're just going to grow in their influence in owning programming rights.
So you may not have the answer to this because it's all so fresh and new, but am I going to be watching Monday Night Raw on Netflix 3 hours, no commercials?
So if you have the subscription that includes no spots, then you will see Raw without commercials. Here's the only challenge with that. You know what happens in a commercial break. The action gets a lot less, intense. And so those who are getting commercials still, who don't want to pay the premium deal, they'll see commercials cover it. You'll just be treated to more of the lulls in the action, but you won't have to sit through a spot. So
I'm going to get headlocks in my wrestling again?
Yes, headlocks and arm bars are coming your way. The guy gets thrown outside the ring and he sits there for 30 seconds while the ref forgets to count. All that kind of stuff will happen, but you just won't have to watch 2 minutes of commercials.
Wow. So historic deal between WWE and Netflix, which then brings us to the NFL and the streaming and Peacock from a couple weeks ago, it was a major talking point down here in South Florida because it was the Dolphins. It was the Dolphins and Chiefs. Now, obviously, locally, it was not an issue, but if you're a Dolphin fan watching somewhere else, it could be an issue. The stance that I took on it, Jason, the NFL is, look, the NFL is a greedy pig. We know that. But the NFL is the only one of the major pro sports leagues here in North America that doesn't charge you for regular season games. Right. Marlins, Panthers, Heat, those are on regional cable networks. I'm paying for that. You may not feel like you're paying for it. You are paying for it. The NFL is on over-the-air broadcast television. So I thought that this whole thing was a little bit overblown. What do you think?
I did too. And I think it goes back to, if you've been expecting this like I have for a decade, this was not a surprise. First of all, you can buy Peacock for $4.99 and cancel afterwards, right? Now, I subscribe to Peacock anyway, so it wasn't costing me anything because it's already part of my package. If you don't think that we're going to be in an a la carte world, subscribing to everything, we're already doing it, but it's only going to amplify. More people are going to go under the subscription hood and say, if you want our programming, you got to pay us directly, because the cable companies are not going to pay enough money to these operators. And if you're ESPN, you're going, why should I only take $5 from a cable company when I'm part of 100 channels, but I'm the one that's really driving the bus, when I could charge $10, get the money myself? I don't care if I'm in a package with 99 other channels that don't matter. So eventually these groups, you said it, the NFL is a greedy pig. A lot of the media companies are going, if you want us to continue to pay for programming rights and you want us to continue to invest in the kind of content you want, well, then we need more of your money to do it. And so, look, do I feel bad for some of the folks who, have the basic cable package, don't have the means to do other things? Yes. And that's the unfortunate part of where we're at when it comes to programming on television. You're not going to get everything you want. You're going to have to decide what is valuable, what isn't valuable. I'm sure there are people who said, I like Thursday Night Football better when it's on Fox basic channels than when I have to buy an Amazon subscription. Guess what? Those who really want Thursday Night Football are going to go get an Amazon subscription. And so that's just where we're at. That's the reality, whether you love it or not. You could say they're all, getting rich. This is wrong. And usually the part of the demo that will say that are the older folks who are grown up. I'm almost 50. So I grew up on a time where traditional is all that there was, and it was great. But you had to know that, like, Netflix, I pay for Netflix, Amazon, Peacock, Apple, Disney, and then I got my YouTube TV. Before you know it, you're going, I'm spending $300 a month on programming that I don't even watch. Yeah. So at some point you go, maybe I don't need all this. But there are deals like, I look at Peacock, I go, I get WWE pay-per-view every month. I get a lot of original programming there that I like. And now I get a football playoff game as part of it, and I didn't pay an extra dime. Like, that's not bad, $5 a month. Some of these, like, I had YouTube Premium. I was paying $19 a month to not see commercials on YouTube. I eventually said, listen, I'm going to have to sit through 2 minutes of commercials.
You know what? I did the same thing. About a month ago, I did the same thing. I'm like, I got to cut back somewhere. I'm cutting back the YouTube Premium. And I got rid of it a month ago. I'm like, all right, I'll wait 20 seconds for a commercial to pass.
Right. If it was $5 like Peacock, I'd probably have said, you know what, just leave it. But after a while, you go, it's not that I can't spend the $19. It's just, why am I paying $19 just to not see a commercial? I'm not that lazy. I'll sit through it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it is a weird thing. And I'll add to this. As far as all the streaming and the different apps, a pain in the ass is if I'm watching, let's say, Amazon Prime, and I'm watching Thursday Night Football and they go to commercial, I can't then flip to another channel during the commercial break. It's too much effort to close out the app, add another app, pick a channel I want to watch. By then, the commercial's over. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And look, there is something to be said. And I saw, I think it was Clay Travis made this point, which was fair. Some people feel if you're going to put these games under a stream and you're going to make people pay for them, well, when you go on Amazon, you order a movie for $5, you don't get hit with spots. So shouldn't I be treated to the same experience when I go on Netflix, or if I go on Amazon, or if I go on Peacock? And there's validity in that. Like, if I'm paying you just for the programming, why am I also getting hit with the advertising? That being said, we know the world. You're not going to win that. What are you going to do? You just go on social media and complain and, get an army of people to complain? The NFL is going to go, that's great. We got 60 minutes of commercials, which are going to bring in another $60 million per game. We have another 60 million coming in subscription. Guess what? You're getting ads. And so, or you could pay for a tier package to not see the ad, and you get to watch the equivalent of what WWE will show with less action, where they'll show you coaches on the sideline just talking. And so you go, do you want to just pay more just to watch people stand on the field, or do you want to just sit for 2 minutes? Because you're right. You're not going to leave the app once you're watching the game to go seek out something else, because even if you do, you're probably landing in a spot where you're watching ads somewhere else. So what's the point?
Jason, what the hell happened at Sports Illustrated?
This, you go back to how streaming has been going down the path, and you could see the positive coming of the growth. This, unfortunately, is the complete opposite. You've seen this story developing for the last 5-6 years. When Maven was involved, if you remember, they got rid of Grant Wall, which was terrible. I mean, the guy was the best at what he did. They had put, Richard Deitch was a must read for me in Sports Illustrated, and obviously still is with The Athletic, but they started to lose a lot of their quality. SI was, to me, built on quality. It was built on respect. It was the best journalism you could get. And then that became a priority for readers like myself over the years, which is why we bought the magazines, why eventually when they migrated to online, we followed. But once you start losing the Peter Kings, the Richard Deitches, the Grant Walls, back in the day, the Rick Rileys, once that starts to happen and you start to become more of a factory of content chasing clicks, trying to play the Google game, trying to, pound the internet with 200 stories a day because we need to sell the mass scale. If you're not known for destination people, eventually you may have scale, but you don't have influence and impact the way you did. And unfortunately, there's still some really good people there. I liked listening to Jimmy Traina's stuff and reading his stuff. I feel for people like that because they still uphold the standards that SI put in place. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people under the SI banner that don't have Jimmy Traina's credentials. And so as this has continued to go, I mean, you just look when Maven had it and now Arena Group, you can't sit there and say, well, SI is not technically dead. We're just looking for a new licensee. What are you telling me about your brand and company? That literally you're selling a name to rent. Well, that doesn't do anything. The reason why the name upholds and means something to people is because of the great journalists that worked for it. When you don't have the great journalists working for it and all you have are two great letters, or names in this case, SI, Sports Illustrated, however you want to position it, well, then you don't have a brand. You need the quality to go with the name. And so ultimately, I think the quality diluted. Whatever their business dealings were going on behind the scenes, clearly both sides were not in a place that they felt good about a relationship. And for those who loved Sports Illustrated like I did growing up, I think we've already reached the point over the last 5 to 8 years where we realized that's not the Sports Illustrated I knew. So this to me feels like this was Old Yeller in the back and somebody had to put Old Yeller down. If you're not going to commit to the quality and do it right, don't do it. Sell the name to somebody, let them build it back. If they, The Athletic came in at one point in time and said, we're going to rescue sports journalism. And they did, so much to the point that the New York Times said, we believe in what you're doing, we'll buy it. Well, same thing could be done with a Sports Illustrated. You just got to get the right person who knows what that brand means. It's going to take a lot of money. Let's not kid ourselves. And if they see the value long-term, they'll probably build it back up and have a good payoff down the road. But it's, journalism's not cheap. If anyone knows, I'm not spending near what these kind of groups spend, but just running a BSM is freaking no day at the beach. And so I know that, eventually costs add up and people have to determine if there's enough return to make it make sense.
There's a movie from about 20 years ago with Dennis Quaid and Topher Grace called In Good Company, which is essentially what happened with Sports Illustrated. It's their version of Sports Illustrated. He's a writer for their Sports Illustrated. They get bought out by a big company. It all changes. Like you should check that. It's a good movie. It's called In Good Company.
I'll have to dig into that. I'm always looking for new stuff to watch because we see so much of the same stuff on TV. So I'll take you up on that.
Yeah, check that out. I do want to hit on a couple more things with you for dorky sports media stuff and people like me who really like this stuff. Shocking news on a couple fronts last week. One of them was Spike Eskin leaving WFAN, where he was program director there and also executive with Odyssey, I believe, which he left WIP years ago to go to WFAN and program. And now in like an unprecedented move, essentially, from running WFAN, programming WFAN, going back to WIP, which is obviously a heritage radio station, to host there. Not to program direct, not to be an executive. I was shocked with this news.
I was stunned too. I text Spike that day. I said, "You certainly keep things interesting for us." And, he's always had a pretty good personality when it comes to these kind of things. But look, he's one of those guys, super sharp. He could be successful at either path. He's done really well with his podcast rights to Ricky Sanchez, which is very Sixers and Philly focused. It obviously had the cream of the crop programming job. And I'm not privy to what goes on in his head, what goes on in their building. WFAN was doing pretty well. He was overseeing WFAN and CBS Sports Radio. He also serves as VP of programming for Odyssey, where essentially when PDs in other markets are going through things, they'll reach out to bring him in, almost like the company's de facto consultant on sports radio matters, right? And so he had the ultimate position. Now, if he wants to be on the air and talk about Philadelphia sports, and he has a bigger passion for that, then, look, when you've programmed for a while, eventually, another corporate meeting, another sales thing, another promotions thing, maybe it's not as exciting as being on the air. The thing that I thought was strange, only from, the timing is never going to be good. But the thing that I felt was strange was, okay, he left Philly where he was programming. And while he was there programming, he also was on the afternoon show, though he was in the third chair with Josh Innes and Hollis Thomas. Now he's driving the show. So maybe that makes it a little different because you feel you have control and you're creating the ideas for the show versus just reacting, right? But now there's less influence on the overall brand, which Spike is more than qualified to provide. On the other hand, look, sometimes guys get to a point, like I'm almost 50. The way I worked at 35 is not the way I want to work when I'm 65, right? So if you like the idea of, I just want to talk and be able to focus on one thing rather than having to worry about the network, worry about the local station, worry about the afternoon show, sure, there's some value in that. The thing that anybody in the business, I wrote about it on barrettsportsmedia.com, and I'm sure like some people in the building, read it and are like, oh God, I can't believe he's bringing this up. And I'm just saying what most people in the business are going to tell me and are thinking. When you bring somebody over who's running Odyssey in that kind of capacity, they're probably doing pretty well financially, probably more so than the afternoon guy at WIP. Which means if you're not taking a haircut, which they're not going to do that with a guy like Spike. So if you're doing that, you're saying, okay, we'll absorb heavier payroll. Well, to do that during a time when there's bankruptcy in a process going on for Odyssey, that they're not just going to go, no problem, let's add a few $100,000 of payroll. Yeah. So something's got to come, which means either WFAN can't pay as much for the job, which if you know anything about Chris Olivero, he's not going in going, yeah, no problem. We'll find a guy for $150,000 less. No way. I can't see that. So then the natural thing becomes, well, they got a guy in Philadelphia who's qualified to host and program, and we have a program director. Well, their program director, Rod Lakin, is excellent. The station's ratings right now are through the roof. He's done everything right. So much so that Spike said he went to Rod and said, Rod is the one who brought up the idea. So if that's the case, I'm going, well, I can't see them being in a rush to move Rod out. This really becomes a year or two down the road. Where's the station at? Is Rod still happy? Does Spike want to do more? And nobody's going to have that answer for a while. As I said in the column, I hope it works out to the point where Spike crushes in the afternoon, Rod crushes programming, Chris finds his guy in New York, and they find their way to eliminate some costs throughout the company rather than just making it about these two particular things. But skepticism is going to kick in when you have these kind of moves and you have someone like, why is it coming up? Because this guy is really qualified to do two jobs. And when you have someone with that talent, of course, as a company, you owe it to yourself to go, are we maximizing the value this guy brings to the workplace?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And also here, Jason, last week, we learn out of nowhere, Erica Ayers-Baden leaves her post as CEO at Barstool. Is this going to have, like, what kind of impact does this have for Barstool?
So initially, you look at what she's done since she got in there. And, I've been fortunate to talk to her on stage at an event and go back and forth with her a few times, and super sharp. Really had a good feel of their business, defended the brand, really trusted and respected by everybody there. So initially, when you lose someone like that who's had the brand's best interests at heart, you're losing a friend, a mentor, somebody who believed in your product, right? She also was really connected and good at selling the brand. So I don't know every single salesperson inside Barstool. I'm sure they have a ton of hungry, sharks in that building that can go out and generate revenue. You don't get to the point they're at without more than one. But naturally, when you lose someone with Erica's acumen and ability, the initial reaction is going to be, will they be able to continue to dominate in the sales game the way that they had? And consider that she wasn't just out selling. She was going out with Portnoy to recruit investors, and she's really good, right? So the natural thing is going to be, okay, if you go back to Barstool before Erica, it was a juggernaut brand. It had a lot of momentum, but it wasn't seen as a buttoned up business. That being said, I mentioned this Monday, Portnoy is the one guy I'll never bet against. Dave Portnoy, more times than not, comes out on the right end, even when he's in a line of fire and everybody's writing for him to be let go and, Barstool's going to go up in flames. He always comes out on the other end. And he, while Erica may get credit for a lot of the business growth, he's right there connected to all of it. Nothing's happening without him. So as soon as I see this, I'm naturally going, okay, are they going to have someone who's alongside Portnoy to be the buffer? Because the one thing about Dave, it's well documented. He's very passionate. He speaks his mind, which is what makes him an incredible personality. On the other hand, sometimes when you're the guy in the line of fire, you need somebody else speaking. Mm-hmm. Because if you're the guy, then it just comes like, okay, defending the company, this guy can't see what's going on. Erica's always been a really good yin to the yang, right? So I think that's going to be their question. I think also without investor influence, at what point do talent, when they start getting recruited, because they've been recruited in the past, they're not leaving, they've loved Barstool, but if the business structure doesn't feel as strong in 18 to 24 months and someone comes calling, does it make people look at things, go, maybe I didn't do it the last 3 times, but maybe this is the time, right? And so what they do internally to create that camaraderie and that keep that confidence side, it make people want to perform there, that's going to be the focus. I think naturally you got to wonder, I'm not saying, when I say you got to wonder if Barstool's peak, I'm not talking about can they continue to grow audience and make bigger impact. They can still do that. The question becomes will the value be higher than it is right now, or where it has been before when they got Penn National. Right now, I don't think you can say yes. But as I said, if there's one person I wouldn't bet against in business, it's Dave Portnoy. Because just when you think, all right, they were $500 million with Penn National, maybe they're $300 now, he'll have them at $1.2 billion in 5 years, and you'll go, well, I was wrong again on that one. So, right now, to me, the bigger question is, what does this mean for the stability of the brand? And what happens the next, because media outlets love to go after Barstool.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We're not one of them. I've actually tried to cover them with respect. I'll write something critical if I think it warrants it. But I respect their brand. They've done a lot of good things for the sports media business. But when something nationally comes up and the Washington Times or Business Insider or whichever outlet next wants to go after them, and they have to deal with it, and it starts to have a trickle down effect to sales, how is that going to be handled? Because Portnoy can't be the guy to answer everything. They're going to have some support around them. And so that's the only real question I have. I still think there'll be a thriving brand, and, it'll change, obviously, because Erica's been a really great addition to that company, but they found great talent so many times that I trust that they'll find something else.
Yeah. Excellent job, Jason. I enjoyed this. Jason Barrett, Barrett Sports Media. Tell everybody again real quick how they can get tickets for the Barrett Sports Media Summit coming up.
You go on to bsmsummit.com, or you can go on to barrettsportsmedia.com, click on the store. Everything's in there. If you like to consume this kind of content, just check out the website and read it. You don't even have to come to the conference. Just enjoy the content.
I'm looking forward to it this year. Great job, Jason. Thanks so much for doing this with me today. I appreciate it.
You got it, man. Do it anytime. Let me know.